I don't want trans people banned from sports. I want them to be disallowed from competing against biological women. Different thing. I want them to be able to compete
with
in sport.
people of their own gender.
Or their own sex. They should compete with people of their own sex.
I think I just saw her head explode.
That is exactly the type of talking point that in 20 years we're going to be looking back at and regretting.
Really? So you think in 20 years' time in the Olympics? So to be clear, then, in the Olympics, you would have just what, open Olympics?
Open season.
Sex is irrelevant. Gender irrelevant. Everyone just competes against each
absolutely.
other.
I would too.
Really? So do you understand?
Well, everyone just can.
Eli, do you understand that by doing that, you literally end the Olympics? It's all over because only men would win. Do you understand that? That's why we separate them.
I don't want to take this down.
Now, hang on. I want Eli to respond. You literally are destroying the Olympics for anyone who's not a man.
Okay, so the wokies are back at it again, and this time on the Piers Morgan show. They're back at it, and the subject is that biological men that transition to women, so we call them trans women, should be competing with biological women. Essentially what she means is this trans person. What the trans person means is that she wants to see the oppression of women's sports at the expense of a few men that want to compete alongside women. If they didn't want to compete alongside women, then they'd have their own category, which is what I always put forth and suggest. You know, have your own trans category, and that way you can compete against other trans. You're not taking anything away from the woman. And of course, you're not going to compete against the men. We know that. So have your own category so that, you know, you can compete and be victorious and be the best in the trans category. It makes sense. You know, why is there such an urge to run to female sports? It has to be female sports because I feel like a woman. Why is there such an urge? Okay, cool, you feel like a woman. Many other people do as well. And this is why you can have your own trans category. So therefore, in the Olympics, in the NFL, in the NBA, in all kinds of sports, 100, 200, 400 meter running, sprints, you know, you can race against other people who feel like you. And that way, you're not taking anything away from anyone. This leads me, alongside other people globally, to think that there must be an agenda put in place somewhere here, because the sensible argument would be to have your own category, but that argument never gets pushed to the forefront. It's always, no, I need to compete against women. Like, well, why do you need to compete against women so much so? You know, and again, women will not speak out about it because a lot of women in today's society are woke, and they feel like if they speak out, then somehow that makes them transphobic for just saying that I want to compete against biological women. When I used to compete back in school, I used to compete against biological men. I was happy with that. You know, a woman should want to compete against a biological woman, and a trans should want to compete against another trans. You know, prove you're the best in your category. You know, the female category just isn't your category. You know, regardless of what you think at the top, you know, it's just not your category. I'm sorry. So yeah, anyway, guys, that's a long introduction. Let's get straight into the video, and then we'll analyze as we go. So yeah, let's go.
I mean, on that point, though, given you've not been on Censored before, we've debated this a lot with other guests, particularly James. How do you feel, given that trans people want fairness and equality, how do you feel about the issue of trans athletes in women's sport, given that it's so obviously, to me and many other people, unfair and unequal?
Oh, here we go. Well, let's leave it to the experts. The different associations have agreed on different standards for different sports. It's all very relative. A recent study actually found that we're too harsh on trans people in sports and require too much, too long of a transition to a point where the equivalent cisgender person would be at a disadvantage. So it's complicated. It needs to be drawn out by the actual sports authorities rather than politicians or pundits.
So if a 6'5" 230-pound biological male boxer puts their hand up and says, I would like to compete in women's boxing, would you be happy with that?
There are 6'5", 300-pound cis women too.
Not the question.
It's not the question. They don't have the same physiology as a biological male.
No.
They don't have the same lung capacity.
They often
can. They haven't got the same muscle mass. No, they haven't. This is the whole point of the debate, is that it's not just about taking less testosterone. You have as Caitlyn Jenner has articulated very well, you have an inbuilt superior physiological advantage over biological females. That's the problem. Now, I want trans athletes...
Not necessarily. Estrogen... Look, estrogen absolutely wreaks havoc on our muscular systems, on our ability to perform in sports. And there's a reason that the rules are so strict, because it does greatly affect our capacity to participate.
Well, we'll disagree.
Yeah, I think this is where a lot of the backlash against the so-called trans community comes from, because we all agreed on that first point that this is pandering and this is companies trying to make money and so on. But when people start coming to arguments about biological males competing in female sports, and by the way, notice the conversation only happens in one direction, and there's a specific reason for that. Nobody is concerned about men's sports or boys' sports.
Of course.
And that is because we're biologically different. And I just think that this is the reason why this conversation has raged on for so long. It's these type of ridiculous, frankly, demands that affect women, affect half of the population, particularly those who play sports. And that's where people just get lost. And I think that's where a lot of the backlash or resentment actually is stemming from. I think in the West, most people at this point don't really care. Go ahead.
I'm going to go. I'm the only trans person here. This isn't about sports. It's about a gateway for the right to begin banning trans people from...
No. Whoa. Guys, I'm not going to keep pausing it. This isn't about sports. Now, you've got young girls that have been practicing their trade or practicing their sport since they were in primary school, secondary school. They work their way up until the Olympics to compete alongside other females. And you mean to tell me she'll be okay if she hears that 2 lanes down, there's a trans woman there that is going to compete in that race? You mean to tell me that she's worked all her life to get to that point, and she's basically guaranteed a gold medal because she's the best in the world and she's been killing it? Now you have a trans woman, 2 rows down, and they tell her, oh yeah, that's a trans woman, by the way. How is she going to feel? You mean to tell me she's going to be okay with it? She's going to be fine? Oh yeah, Esquire, I'll beat him. She knows that he has an advantage. He has an advantage. And the best I can get is second place. And this is why it's important for women to come out and speak out against it. It's crazy because this trans person says that, she's meant to be progressive. This isn't a progressive way of thinking. This is a very regressive way of thinking. You are going back, in the past. In fact, you're not even going back in the past, because in the Olympics, this never happened. You are going back to the Stone Ages, literally. And you're trying to subject women to that kind of oppression in sports. So this is clearly not a progressive way of thinking. And her way of thinking is going to just allow for no women to get any medals, down the line. And boy, what a sad sight that would be, honestly, watching the Olympics, trans women coming and just tearing up the 100 meters, 200 meters. You couldn't even enjoy the Olympics anymore. You wouldn't even be able to enjoy it. Literally. It's crazy, man, honestly. Anyway, let's carry on.
I'm not right-wing.
That's not true.
I'm not right-wing. So how do you figure that?
No, it's
Well,
not.
you
It's not
certainly
a
have
left-right.
right-wing views on trans votes.
I don't have right-wing views on trans folks. I just said to you, I want trans people to have fairness and equality and the same human rights as everybody else.
And even if you don't personally consider yourself on the right, it's still a gateway into banning trans people.
No, I don't want to ban trans people. I would like trans people to either compete against their own biological sex, which seems to me the easiest thing to do, or they compete in a new section altogether, a trans athlete. What's wrong with that?
Yeah. A new separate but equal league is what you're saying.
Can I jump in here? The solution for this is very simple, and we've had the solution, as far as I know, for about a century. And this is simply to have an open sports league and a female-only sports league. A lot of what people call men's sports is not even explicitly men's sports. Anyone is allowed to participate, but because of the biological and physiological advantages men have, if you take the fastest, the strongest people in the world, the best endurance, they're all going to end up being men. That's how it's going to stack up, which is why if you want females to be able to participate in sports, you need to have a separate league because they can't compete in an
I completely agree. What about those who are not on the right, Eli, like me? I'm not on the right.
And that you do that to people on the right all the time.
I'm a liberal who just sees endless acts of self-harm. by the trans lobby, when actually I'm with you. I want you to get fairness and equality. But I don't want you eroding other people's rights.
You keep on saying this, and yet your actions speak differently.
What actions? What action?
On trying to get trans people banned from sports, comparing
I don't want
trans
to ban
women
from sport.
to
Hang
people
on, don't
identifying
misquote
as
me.
animals.
I don't want trans people banned from sports. I want them to be disallowed from competing against biological women. Different thing. I want them to be able to compete
with
sport.
people of their own gender.
Or their own sex.
What's wrong with
They
that?
should compete with people of their own sex.
I just saw how it's
That is exactly the type of talking point that in 20 years we're going to be looking back at and regretting.
Really? So you think in 20 years' time in the
it's
Olympics?
moving
So to be clear, then in the Olympics, you would have just open Olympics. Sex is irrelevant.
Say no.
Gender
Come on.
irrelevant.
Say
Everyone
no.
just competes
Yeah,
against each
absolutely.
other.
Oh
Really?
my
So do you
God.
understand?
Well, everyone just can.
Eli, do you understand that by doing that, you literally end
Oh.
the Olympics? It's all over because only men would win. Do you understand that? That's why we separate.
I don't want to take this down.
But hang on, I want Eli to respond. You literally are destroying the Olympics for anyone who's not a man.
Well, that's a very grandiose vision of it, but
Not really.
we
Not
could
really. If you
very
look at the
easily-
times, if you look at the times and the results of men Olympians against women Olympians, you will see that in almost, I think, 98% of all the events, men are so far ahead of women on speed, on power, and everything, every other discipline. Women
And
would
that's
never.
why, that's
women
why
would
we
never.
separate it by
Women would never
categorization.
get. Women would never win a medal again at the Olympics if you had your way. Is that what you
Well,
want?
that's very sexist.
Oh
No,
my
no, it's
Do you know that
God.
the first woman
hang on,
to-
hang on, it's not sexist.
Do you know the first
hang on,
woman that
hang on, James,
swam
I'll
the
come to you.
channel?
I'll come to you. It is not sexist. It is a fact. It's why we separate the sexes. When Megan Rapinoe finished her career playing the soccer team, American women's soccer team, she then said that she'd be happy to see a trans woman competing in the women's team, right? Which is fine because it wouldn't take her place. But if you allowed trans women, football players, soccer players, to compete, and enough of them began to do this, there would be no biological women left in the women's national soccer team because they would be physically
Well, trans
superior.
people already have the right to do that, and you're not seeing the results that you say you would be seeing.
Yeah, but you see, you and James both have this wonderfully quaint notion that if you open up the Olympics for everyone, that women would continue to win medals. They wouldn't. They'd win nothing.
Obviously, this is complicated here.
It's not complicated. Oh my gosh, I'm so he's laughing, this guy on the second to left next to Piers. It's really, really not complicated. Just push for your own category. It's just that simple. And what strikes me the most is this trans woman literally doesn't care about women's sports, honestly. You know, she doesn't care about women's sports, this trans woman, and she cares more about the feelings of the trans woman that wants to compete alongside biological women. You know, she cares more for the feelings of the trans person than actual women. And it's crazy because she's on the left and she's all about inclusion. She's all about progressive thinking. But there's no progressive thinking here, honestly. This is just going to harm women. But then again, you know, we can always make the argument on the right. But if, you know, the people on the left don't come forward and they want to be, you know, they want to be silenced, you know, then unfortunately, this is how women's sports, football, basketball, whatever you want, this is how women's sports will start to, you know, be compromised. And before you know it, it will be trans women just playing alongside trans women in the name of women, and women are just at the sidelines, missing out on sponsorship deals, actual deals, their future, etc., because they didn't speak up. And that will be the biggest shame to women. That would be the biggest shame, that they kept quiet and they allowed this carnage to happen versus just speaking out against it.
Not complicated. It's why we separate them. Literally, when Megan Rapinoe's national
The
women's soccer team
conversation-
played the Dallas under-15s,
The conversation-
they lost 8-2.
The conversation-
They were under 15-year-old boys.
The first woman to swim the English Channel, the first woman to do that, beat the men's record by over 2 hours.
He slowed down. He was trying to hit on her.
Let's all right. Hang on. All right, let's move on.
Yeah, this is just what I think. But hey, what do I know? I guess in time we'll see. So if we see a lot of trans women competing alongside a lot of biological women, and somehow the biological women are beating the trans women, then I guess I'm wrong. But I doubt that's going to be happening. I think that the trans women are going to be dominating, regardless of the HRT they're taking, the hormone replacement therapy, they're going to be dominating. You know, Mike Tyson in his prime, give him all the HRT in the world, the hormone replacement therapy. I guarantee you he'll still be going in the ring and knocking biological women out. It's just that simple. So yeah, but anyway, guys, let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you at the next video. Peace.